Everything about the Gavin Christopher Newsom is an American politician and businessman serving since 2019 as the 40th governor of California. His life and everything about him. Part 5. The Sacramento Bee reported that Jennifer Siebel Newsom's nonprofit organization, the Representation Project, had received more than $800,000 in donations from corporations that had lobbied the state government in recent years, including PG&E, AT&T, Comcast, and Kaiser Permanente. Siebel Newsom received $2.3 million in salary from the nonprofit since launching it in 2011. In 2021, Governor Newsom said that he saw no conflict in his wife's nonprofit accepting donations from companies that lobby his administration. In February 2024, Bloomberg News reported that Newsom pushed for an exemption for businesses that bake and sell bread in AB 1228, a bill that raises the state's minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 per hour. The exemption included 24 Panera Bread bakery cafes owned by Greg Flynn, a businessman who donated $100,000 and $64,800 to Newsom's campaigns over the years. Republican lawmakers called for an investigation into the unusual exemption. When reporters asked him about the exemption, Newsom said, "That's a part of the sausage making. We went back and forth, and that was part of the negotiation. That's the nature of negotiation. That was all part of the give and take, and that was the collective wisdom of the legislature, and ultimately led to my signature." In September 2024, the Los Angeles Times reported that Newsom had signed AB 3206 into law, carving out an exception to the state's last call alcohol law for one specific venue, Intuit Dome, owned by former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer. Ballmer's wife, Connie Ballmer, donated $1 million to the Newsom campaign in 2021. Ethics experts criticized the bill for exclusively benefiting a major donor to Newsom. It's certainly going to become an issue for his opponents and critics to point to the fact that he seemed to provide a special favor to a wealthy sports franchise owner and its facility and its wealthy fans. "It just doesn't look good," said John Pellicero, director of government ethics at Santa Clara University. A spokesperson for Newsom said, "The governor's decisions on legislation are made solely on the merits of each bill." Overall, Newsom has vetoed legislation at a rate comparable to that of his predecessors. From 2019 to 2021, he vetoed 12.7% of the bills the legislature passed on average. The rate declined over the course of the 3 legislative sessions. Newsom's vetoes have included bills to allow ranked choice voting, require an ethnic studies class as a high school graduation requirement, regulate AI, and reduce penalties for jaywalking. Newsom used a larger than normal number of executive orders during the 2020 legislative session. As lieutenant governor in 2016, Newsom was the official proponent of Proposition 63. The ballot measure required a background check and California Department of Justice authorization to purchase ammunition, among other gun control regulations. In response to the 2019 mass shooting in Virginia Beach, Newsom called for nationwide background checks on people purchasing ammunition. Later that year, he responded to the Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting by stating his support for the Second Amendment and saying he would like national cooperation controlling weapons of goddamned mass destruction. He also said, "These shootings overwhelmingly, almost exclusively, are males, boys, men." I put in loose quotes. I do think that is missing in the national conversation. On June 10, 2021, Newsom called federal judge Roger Benitez a stone-cold ideologue and a wholly owned subsidiary of the gun lobby of the National Rifle Association, after Benitez struck down California's statewide ban on assault weapons. While the ban remained in place as the state appealed the ruling, Newsom proposed legislation that would empower private citizens to enforce the ban after the United States Supreme Court declined to strike down the Texas Heartbeat Act, which empowers private citizens to report unauthorized abortions. In 2022, Newsom signed gun control bills passed by the California legislature. On July 1st, he signed Assembly Bill 1621, which restricts privately made firearms, which were found to be linked to over 100 violent crimes in Los Angeles, and Assembly Bill 2571, which prohibited the marketing of firearms such as the Junior 15 to children. On July 22nd, Newsom signed Senate Bill 1327, a law enabling private citizens to sue anyone who imports, distributes, manufactures, or sells illegal firearms in California. The law requires courts to award statutory damages of at least $10,000 and attorney's fees. On June 8, 2023, Newsom proposed a 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to raise the age to buy firearms to 21, institute universal background checks for gun purchases, mandate waiting periods, and ban assault weapons for civilians. Law professor Erwin Chemerinsky called this a terrible idea, since the advocated method, which has never been used, would be a constitutional convention, which is not understood to be limited to single amendments, potentially allowing a complete rewrite of the Constitution, or addition of other amendments on separate subjects, like abortion, or the often proposed balanced budget amendment which liberals feel would decimate welfare programs. In December 2021, Newsom announced his intention to make California a sanctuary for abortion, which included possibly paying for procedures, travel, and lodging for out-of-state abortion seekers, if the procedure is banned in Republican-led states. In March 2022, he signed a bill requiring private health insurance plans in the state to fully cover abortion procedures by eliminating associated co-pays and deductibles and increasing insurance premiums. In February 2023, Newsom organized the Reproductive Freedom Alliance of state governors supportive of abortion and reproductive rights. After Walgreens announced in March 2023 that it would refuse to dispense abortion pills in the 21 states where it is illegal, Newsom tweeted, "California won't be doing business with that Walgreens, or any company that cowers to the extremists and puts women's lives at risk. We're done." He also said that Walgreens was giving in to right-wing bullies, and that he would determine how California can cut ties with Walgreens. He indicated that he wanted to cancel Walgreens' $54 million contract with the California state prison system. Walgreens also receives $1.5 billion for filling prescriptions for the 15 million people enrolled in the state's Medi-Cal program, California's version of Medicaid. Legal experts said that federal Medicaid laws do not allow health plans to disqualify providers for reasons other than fraud or contract violations, provisions that have prevented conservative states from blocking Medicaid spending to Planned Parenthood clinics. Newsom campaigned on reducing the cost of health care and increasing access. He also indicated his support for creating a universal state healthcare system. The budget passed in June 2019 expanded eligibility for Medi-Cal from solely undocumented minor children to undocumented young adults from ages 19 to 25. In 2021, Newsom signed legislation expanding Medi-Cal eligibility to undocumented residents over age 50. On June 30, 2022, he signed a $307.9 billion state budget that pledges to make all low-income adults eligible for the state's Medicaid program by 2024, regardless of their immigration status. This budget would make California the first U.S. state to guarantee health care to all low-income undocumented immigrants at a cost of $2.7 billion per year. Newsom was criticized in early 2022 for walking back from his support for universal health care and not supporting CalCare, Assembly Bill 1400, which would have instituted single-payer health care in California. Critics suggested that opposition from business interests, which had donated large sums to Newsom and his party, had swayed his opinion. On July 6, 2022, Newsom signed Senate Bill 184, which established the Office of Healthcare Affordability with the stated goal to develop data-informed policies and enforceable cost targets, with the ultimate goal of containing healthcare costs. In October 2023, Newsom vetoed a bill to cap copays for insulin at $35. In his February 2019 State of the State address, Newsom announced that, while work would continue on the 171-mile, 275-kilometer Central Valley segment from Bakersfield to Merced, the rest of the system would be indefinitely postponed, citing cost overruns and delays. This and other actions created tension with the State Building and Construction Trades Council of California, a labor union representing 450,000 members. A poll found that California voters thought the most important issue for Newsom and the state legislature to work on in 2020 was homelessness. In his first week of office, Newsom threatened to withhold state funding for infrastructure to communities that failed to take actions to alleviate California's housing shortage. In late January 2019, he announced that he would sue Huntington Beach for preventing the construction of affordable housing. A year later, the city acted to settle the lawsuit by the state. Newsom opposes NIMBY not in my backyard sentiment, declaring in 2022 that NIMBYISM is destroying the state. In 2021, He signed a pair of bills into law that made zoning regulations for housing less restrictive, allowing construction of duplexes and fourplexes in lots that were previously zoned exclusively for single-family homes. Newsom also signed a bill which expedites the environmental review process for new multifamily developments worth at least $15 million. To participate, developers must apply directly through the governor's office. In 2022, Newsom signed 39 bills into law intended to address California's housing crisis, 3 of which entailed major land use reform. One bill eliminated minimum parking requirements for housing near mass transit stations throughout the state. Michael Manville, an urban planning professor at UCLA's Luskin School of Public Affairs, called it one of the biggest land use reforms in the country. Another bill allowed developers to build housing on some lots previously exclusively zoned for commercial use, without getting local government's permission if a certain percentage of the housing was affordable. A third bill allowed for the construction of market-rate housing on some lots previously exclusively zoned for commercial use. In a signing ceremony for the latter 2 bills, Newsom warned local governments which have a history of blocking and delaying housing developments that they would be held accountable for future housing obstructionism. Other bills Newsom signed required localities to approve or deny various building permits within a strict timeline, and streamlined student and faculty housing projects by allowing California colleges to skip onerous review processes for new projects. Measures and actions to reduce homelessness in California have not yet solved the problem. The number of homeless hit a record number of over 181,000 in January 2023. According to some, to cope with this problem, California must build more than 2.5 million housing units. In October 2023, Newsom vetoed several bills aimed at expanding access to housing assistance. One was a bill to repurpose unused state-owned land for affordable housing, which Newsom said infringed on state sovereignty. Another would have expanded the number of people who qualify for state housing assistance. A third would have mandated that Medi-Cal cover the cost of housing assistance. In August 2024, Newsom warned counties that did not remove their homeless encampments that failure to do so would result in their state funding being cut off the next year. I stop at this point today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world's incredible stories. Soon we will publish Part 6. Thank you for watching.